hello. There we go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. I was just mentioning Canada, and I see somebody here from Canada, which is so fun. But I love being here with you guys every week. We have people here from so many different places: Michigan, Tampa, New York, Canada, Minnesota, Utah, all over the place. I'm here in New Jersey. Another Canada. Amazing. I have to come visit. But for those of you I haven't met, my name is Katie. I apologize for my hair today. I don't know what's happening. But I'm a pastry chef and I love to teach baking classes here with my girls. And I'm here with you guys every week on Thursdays, which is always such a fun highlight of the week. And today, even though it's cloudy outside, we're making the sunniest, happiest dessert, which is a lemon tart. And I was just mentioning to Rich before class, this is not your everyday lemon tart. This is my favorite lemon tart. It's so good. I wish you were here with me. I hope some of you are baking along. But if you're not, by the way, bake along and you can check this out on YouTube in about 48 hours if you want to on the way. But what's lovely about this lemon tart is it's not that typical like super tart, super like sweet tart balance. This has sour cream in it, which completely just changes the whole texture. It's like this creamy, lemony, lovely, delicious, delicate, just fantastic dessert. I think it's just delicious. So hopefully you'll make this one. I definitely guarantee it. And I'm going to have two by the end of today. So I'm just going to be eating lemon tarts until summer comes, which will be really fun. But I'll take you down, Rich, when you're ready. Come on down. I'll show you what I'm working with today. Some pretty basic stuff, nothing too fancy. We do have a beautiful fluted tart pan here with a removable bottom, which is important for this. I will say, if you don't have one of these, there are workarounds. You can make this in a pie plate. You can make it even in a 9 by 13 pan if you wanted to. You could definitely do that. But I do love the fluted edge that this tart gives you. And also it's great for not just this dessert, but so many other desserts as well, especially if you make like a chocolate ganache tart, which is so much fun for different seasons and things like that. It's a really lovely pan to have, so I do definitely recommend it. And we'll be working with that. He just threw the materials and ingredients in the chat, so if anybody is baking along, definitely check that out. And Kimberly said, can't wait, we're finishing up citrus and strawberry season here in Florida. I'm so jealous. Is it possible to make this in a small muffin tin? Yes. And actually, I also have from Michael's a mini tart pan that also would be great. And the mini tart pan actually has the same fluted edges, which is so cute. But you can definitely use a muffin tin as well. Just go ahead and give them a spray before you get started to make sure everything comes out nice and easy. But to take you through the ingredients, so we're making two parts today. We've got the crust, which is similar to almost like what we would call a pâte sucrée, a French crust that's just a little bit sweet. It's got some egg yolk in it, some milk for richness. I've got butter, of course, going into my tart crust. This is straight out of the refrigerator. I diced it up, so that's why it looks kind of funny in this package, but it is cold butter. So no need to pull out your butter and bring it to room temperature today. You could just pull it straight out of the fridge, which is so helpful. I've got all-purpose flour as the base of our crust. I've got some sugar just to add a little sweetness. I've got salt here that I'm sort of sharing between the two. And I do always use kosher salt. I think somebody asked once about table salt. Big fan of using kosher salt for baking. It just really gives you the right ratio there. I've got some whole milk, although you can use other types of milk as well. If you have 2%, that's fine. It'll totally work the same. I've got an egg yolk here. And actually, in the recipe, you'll see in the filling, it calls for 3 eggs and 2 egg yolks. 4 eggs and 2 egg yolks. Somebody remind me. I believe it's 4 eggs and 2 egg yolks. Today, because of the price of eggs, I'm using 1 whole egg instead of the 2 yolks, just to kind of be a little bit more economical about things, which will totally work the same. So it's up to you guys if you want to do those 2 yolks for a little extra richness, or you could just kind of skip that idea and just go with 5 whole eggs would be fine as well. And somebody asked, what size is the tart pan? This is a 9-inch. So 9 inches is great. If you have an 8-inch or a 10-inch, that'll also work. The filling is going to end up like a little bit more shallow if you use a larger pan, a little bit higher if you use something like an 8-inch. So you might have to save a little bit of it for another type of pan, but any size will work. Oh, thank you so much. So 3 egg yolks and 4 eggs. So one of our yolks is for our crust, and the other 2 plus the 4 whole is going to be for the filling. So I went with 5 instead of breaking it up into yolks. So that's your option there. I've also got granulated sugar for the filling. I've got butter to add richness to the filling. A fresh lemon for lemon zest. You can skip it, but it does really add just this fresh brightness, which is so lovely, especially if you're using something like bottled lemon juice, which will totally work for this. I would say throwing a little zest in there can really just like bring it to life a little bit, which is lovely. And the sour cream, the famous sour cream, which totally changes the tart, which I love so much. Such a simple ingredient can make such a big difference. So that's the sour cream for that. And Erin, I'm sure Rich will share it again. It is shared in the chat once if you want to scroll up a little bit, but I'm sure he could share it again for you there as well. All right. So in terms of equipment today, so we are going to be doing the filling in a small pot. We're going to be cooking it a little bit. We'll talk about that. And the crust I'm going to be doing in a food processor. You can do it by hand as well if that's easier. You can kind of just break out a bowl in your fingertips and work it all together. And yes, that's a great point. And Kim, you can use Greek yogurt instead of the sour cream. Absolutely. Which would be a lovely swap, especially in the summertime. A Greek yogurt lemon tart would be so delicious. All right, so I'm going to get the filling ingredients out of the way, and we're going to start getting into our crust right off the bat here. So I'm going to put my tart aside. And again, my butter is cold. This is going to add a little bit of flakiness. If I was using room temperature butter, I would end up with more of like a cookie-like crust. If I want something crisp and flaky, it's nice to have that cold butter in the mix. But this crust really does come together so quickly. And the beauty of it is you don't need to roll it out. It's a press-in crust, which just makes the dessert even better, I feel like. Nothing's easier than a press-in. So flour going in, sugar going in. I've got a little bit of salt just to kind of balance things out, enhance the flavor a little bit there. And I'm just going to give this a pulse first before my butter goes in. We don't want that butter attaching to some of that salt and soaking it up. We really want everything to mix nice and evenly. So I'm just going to go ahead and give this a quick blitz just to combine. And then I'm going to go ahead and just add in my butter. So somebody asked, what kind of blender do I have? So this is a Cuisinart food processor that I'm using here, but any kind of food processor, or you can do this by hand, totally. Now you can see my butter. I sort of cut it up into small chunks just to help the food processor along, kind of give it a head start there. And all we're going to do is process this just until they're about pea-sized. I'm sure you've heard that before. You want those little bits of butter running through. Perfect. All right. That's it. 1, 2, 3. So if I look in here now, you see most of the butter is kind of mixed really nicely into the mix. I don't see any big chunks running through, but I don't want to overdo it either. As soon as your butter sort of disappears into these small bits, you are good to go. You want to keep that as cold as possible so it really keeps that flakiness intact that we're looking for. Now, if I went ahead and just dumped in this yolk, it's probably going to end up little eggy pieces running throughout. So what I want to do is just thin this out with my milk. I've got my tablespoon of milk going into my yolks. Give it just a quick stir. That way it's going to dissolve really evenly. That's the word I'm going for. Into the dough. And keep it really nice and smooth. All right. So I'm just going to kind of pour this in right over the mix, and then we're just going to blitz it really quickly just to combine. And that's it. About 3 seconds on that. So if we take a look and you're going to say, oh, this looks so crumbly, it's great. Just leave it exactly like that, because the more we work it, the more gluten is created, which we've definitely talked about before in other classes, how gluten can develop. And especially in something like a tart shell, when you want the most flaky, tender texture, you really want to make sure that you work these ingredients as little as possible, which also has the added benefit of really keeping your butter nice and cold, which is what we want. So all I'm going to do is kind of dump this out onto my board here, just to make sure there are no dry bits, wet bits, anything that's unincorporated. And all I'm going to do is just kind of bring it together a little bit, just to make sure everything is nice and even. And that's it. That's all we want from our crust. So all we're going to do, you can roll this out if you want to, but the beauty of this recipe is we can literally just press it in. So whether you're baking by yourself, or if you have kids baking with you or anything like that, It's really nice to kind of get the whole family involved. It's a nice, easy activity. You do need a little bit of flour for your fingertips, but I'm just sort of portioning this in. And then I'll get all of this off. And a little bit of bench flour or extra flour, just to kind of help us a bit. So I'm just going to kind of mush my fingers in a little bit of flour. And I do like to start with the edges first. I tend to use my thumbs and just work around in a pretty thin layer. About 1/4 of an inch, even 1/8 of an inch is fine. If the dough starts sticking, just thumbprint into a little bit of flour, press it all around. And you do want this as even as possible. If the dough is overly sticky for you, let's say the butter was a little bit warm, if you're somewhere, I know someone was from Florida, if you're having warmer weather than we are, you can even chill the dough for about 10 minutes before you work with it, and that would be helpful as well. But all I'm doing is working my way around, and every so often you can kind of clean off the top a bit. But the beauty of doing the sides first is you really make sure that your sides are nice and sturdy. And then you can kind of tackle the bottom with what's left. Hi. Oh, thanks, Kim. I really do like this dessert a lot. I think the first time I made this one, when did I make this first? I think I was developing a recipe for a magazine. And they wanted a lemon tart, but they were like, but, not like a super tart lemon tart. And I was like, okay. And I didn't really know what that meant. But then I was like, what if we add like a little creme fraiche or sour cream or just something to kind of balance it out? And then I thought, why not make like a press and crust? Just make it like a really nice, easy spring, summer dessert. Because I feel like in the spring and the summer, you don't really want to have to work too hard, It's not like making desserts for the holidays where you really want to put in that time. So this is just quick and easy. See, now with what's left, I'm just kind of pressing it through. And you do want to make sure whenever you're making a tart or a pie for that matter, you kind of keep an eye on the corners, because if you've ever cut in and you've gotten like a really fat corner at the bottom, you really do want to make sure that you kind of press and just like really level out the corner. This way you don't end up with that big doughy bit. It's just really nice and crisp all the way around. Now at this point, just make sure all your sides are even, and then just with your finger, you can even do this with a rolling pin, just kind of even out the top. Make sure it's really nice and flat and pretty along the edge. And we are going to blind bake this. So if you're new to blind baking, the whole purpose is, especially for a filling that cooks so quickly, like a lemon filling, you really want to make sure you avoid that soggy bottom, which we've all heard about, right? Like whether it's a pie or a tart. If you watch Great British Bake Off, you know you don't want a soggy bottom. So blind baking kind of takes care of that for you. It crisps up the crust before the filling even goes in. So it's kind of ensuring, it's like an insurance policy that your pie is going to bake through perfectly by the time your filling is ready. So you can take a small measuring cup and kind of like press this out if you want to, just to make it really perfect. But all we're going to do is line this with some foil and some weights. So depending on what you, oh, and great question. So Maria said, is there a need to grease the pan? If your pan is in good quality and it's a nice, sturdy pan, I don't grease mine. If you're nervous about it, if things have stuck to it before, you can give it a quick spray or just like a brush of your butter wrapper before you start. That would be fine. But this is a very buttery crust, so we should have no problems with it coming out really nice and clean. All right. So depending on what kind of weights you've got, we have some options. So of course you might have pie weights, which are very lovely to have on hand. I do have sort of like a more economical pie weight option that I tend to use, which is just dried beans. I've had these same dried beans. I want to I want to say it's been a while. I want to say like 2 years probably. And I use them over and over again. I just keep them in a Ziploc bag in the cabinet. And anytime I need pie weights, I just sort of grab my dried beans and I throw them in there. You could also use rice. People have used sugar. I'm not a big fan of that because I feel like that's just a little bit messy, but using sugar does toast up the sugar, and then you're able to use that in different ways in other recipes, which is kind of fun. But pie weights are definitely a great option as well. Anything that sort of weighs down the crust. The goal is that we want to really keep the crust from kind of ballooning up as it bakes. We want to keep it nice and flat. We want to make sure the sides remain the sides, the bottom remains the bottom. Everything stays in place. And this way, as we bake, everything is just going to bake up really nicely. Now, as an extra insurance, and I did put this in the recipe, I think, to freeze the tart for about 10 minutes before you bake it. That just kind of helps make sure if your butter is a little bit soft and the crust is a little bit soft, what might happen is it's going to hit the heat of the oven, and you might get a little bit of a slide down the side of the tart. So to make sure that it really stays in place, freezing it for about 10 minutes before you get in the oven is a great way to just make sure that it really just stays sturdy and in where you want it to be. Thank you so much, Casina. That's so good. You can do that. And if you haven't preheated your oven, that's an even better thing to do. You can freeze it while you preheat to 350. And then just go ahead and fill with your weights. So I had some of my weights in the other tart crust that I'm going to show you. But we're just going to pretend that I've got all of them here. So essentially what you want to do is fill it at least halfway. I'm a little light with what I've got here, but at least halfway up the top. Make sure that your crust is pretty covered by your foil. We don't want browning at this point. All we're doing in this first portion of blind baking is kind of setting the crust in place. So the oven is going to kind of bake it through. It's going to stay very blonde in color, but it's going to set it. It's going to kind of just bake through nicely. And when you take it out, after about 15 to 18 minutes or so, it's going to look like this one. Ta-da! The magic of television. So we're going to put this over here. So about 15 to 18 minutes later, you're going to pull this up, and you're just going to see, is my crust nice and firm? Is it kind of firm to the touch? Is it set in place? Does it look kind of matte? You can kind of tell when a tart is just baked through. I'm going to just remove these. It's still doughy. It's not baked through, but you could see that it's kind of set along the edges. Okay. So at this point, we're going to put it back in the oven for another 10 minutes, and it's going to just brown nicely all over. We're going to get a little bit of color. It's going to bake through completely, and then we're going to add our filling. So I'm going to put this one back in the oven for about 10 minutes while we make our filling. And yes, good question, Anya. So you can use parchment paper if you want to, just kind of crumble it up first so it has a little bit more give, and you could just press in your parchment and fill it up the same way. That would definitely work as well. All right, so back in at 350. And the beauty of your beans or whatever you've got, you just let them cool, put them right back into your bag, and they're good for next time. Oh, that's a tricky. I would say you can bake without a lining if you want to, if you've got something, that you'd prefer that way. I'm trying to think what else would be a good lining. I know. Don't get me started on microplastics. I'm with you on that one. It's a good question. Does anyone else know? Parchment, tin foil. I'm trying to think of unconventional liners. I mean, you can skip them completely. You're just going to have to really take out whatever weights you've got in. Just make sure you get them all out afterwards. But if you get those good pie weights, you can kind of just line it and then remove them afterward. You could definitely try that. All right. Dun, dun, dun. So this is a cooked filling, which is a little bit different. You might see some lemon tarts where you're kind of just giving it a quick mix. This one, the filling is cooked before we put it in the tart, just some of the way, just to kind of thicken the texture a little bit. Doesn't cook it all the way, but it's almost like a pudding-like consistency, a thin pudding that we're looking for. And that's just going to kind of help give the filling a little bit of a head start for the creamiest, most delicious results. So I'm going to go ahead and get my eggs in. So again, instead of using my 4 eggs and 2 yolks, I am just going with 5 eggs. That weight is about the same, a whole egg versus 2 egg yolks. And we can kind of save an egg that way in these expensive egg times. And make sure you've got a good whisk ready. My heat is not on yet here. I'm just kind of whisking everything. Oh, cheesecloth. Somebody had a good idea. Cheesecloth. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, soap hat would make me nervous too because I feel like it's so heavy. Then as you go to remove it, I don't know. All right, so I've got my eggs. I've got my sugar going in. I'm going to just turn my heat to sort of a medium low and make sure everything is really nicely combined.
Casina is wondering,
yeah.
because of the five eggs, does this tart filling taste really eggy?
Yeah, no, it does not actually, but that's a great question. You would think so. And even, yeah, it's like, wow, that's a lot of eggs. It really does not. And you could see how much lemon juice is going in to kind of balance. It really just, this is your thickener. Like we don't have any cornstarch in here. We don't have any gelatin going into this tart. This is really just thickened by the eggs. But no, you will not, I promise you, there's no eggy flavor in this one. It's probably, I was just telling Rich before, like how delicious this tart is. It's definitely one of my favorites. It is just lovely and lemony. And you'll get to see it at the end of class a little bit. Yeah, plus the sour cream. Exactly, Jennifer. So I'm adding a little lemon zest. So depending on how much lemon zest you like, we are going to strain it out. So it's kind of up to you. You can go ahead and zest the whole lemon. Give zest part of the lemon. You could add the lemon zest after you strain if you like having the zest in there. But it really does just kind of brighten the flavor a little bit. Exactly. Yeah, if you think about the weight, so that's a good question. This is squeezed lemon juice, but I definitely have made this with bottled lemon juice before, and it's very delicious. So you can do, I know to squeeze a cup of lemon juice is a lot, but if you have fresh lemons, go for it. If you don't, bottled is just fine. And you can even use this with other types of juices like key lime juice. You could do part lime, part lemon, do like a citrus tart. You really have some fun with this one. This is my microplane. I know. I like to microplane like a violin. I feel like it's much faster. You could see the lemon as you go. All right, and what I'm doing right now, you can see it's really thin. Essentially, we're just slowly bringing up the heat of the eggs, and they're going to start thickening the mixture nicely. So it's going to take another minute or two. And then you're going to see this texture start to change to the point where it'll just coat the back of the spoon. That's kind of what we're looking for. That's sort of almost like a creme anglaise, like a vanilla sauce. It's kind of what we're going for here. Have I made this with oranges? You know, I thought about doing like a blood orange one. I haven't done it yet, but I would. I think that would be delicious. Maybe with some like thinly sliced blood oranges on top or oranges on top. That would be really nice. Yeah, microplanes are the best. Now, don't feel like you could do this too slowly. If for any reason you're like, ooh, I'm getting nervous, I don't want scrambled eggs, lower your heat. Just as gentle as you want to do this. We're not working over a double boiler, which would kind of protect our eggs. We're right on the heat. So make sure you're really whisking at all times. Lower that heat as much as you want to feel comfortable. And all we're doing is getting it to a slightly thickened consistency. So actually, I'm even going to shut off my heat and just grab a spoon and kind of show you. So if I put this in at this point and just kind of coat my spoon, see how that line doesn't run. It shows an even line. That's all we need. Just that tiny bit of thickness is perfect. So off the heat, and you could see it kind of like, it's got like a jiggle. That's great. In like 2 minutes. That was super fast. And let me check my chart. Hold on. Still going. We'll give that one more minute. So at this point, we're going to get this out of the way. So you should have 2 ingredients left. There we go. So you should have your butter and sour cream. So at this point, zesting, again, if you want to add your zest at the end, you can, definitely. I already added mine in, and I am going to strain it out. But before I strain, I want to kind of get all the other stuff in there. So my butter is going to melt in just with the heat. And I'm just going to kind of break it up a bit here, just to give it a head start. Lob it in there. That's just going to add some richness. It's also going to help the tart set up once it's chilled. I'm just whisking it in until it melts. Yeah, the problem with using 4 instead of 5, if they're extra large eggs, you can do that because the weight of the eggs is going to be a little bit higher. But I do know it sets up nicely with 5. I can't guarantee how well it's going to set up with 4. It might just be a tiny bit more custardy and less sliceable. What was the name of the tool the pot was heating on top? Oh, that is my portable burner, my Dux top. It's like an electric cooktop, just so I didn't have to bring you guys to the stove. Yeah. Well, that's a good idea. For blind baking, I use an aluminum pie tin with size ½ inch larger than your tart pan, easy to keep several sizes handy. That's a great idea. Thank you, Lynn. That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so you see my butter has melted. I'm going to get my sour cream in. And look at this before and now. It's going to change so much. ½ cup of sour cream. Look at that. Look at that creaminess. It's so good. Wish we had like smell-o-vision. It's so good. Okay. So this we're going to strain. And if you don't have a strainer, you could skip this step. The idea here is just to remove any possible eggy bits that might have happened when we were cooking. But if you are not worried about that, you do not have to strain it. We'll see what we get here. Right. See, I got a couple of eggy bits. You always want to get rid of your eggy bits, and I've got some zest that I removed. So again, up to you if you like the zest in there or not. You could always add some back or add it at the end. But always good to make sure you have the smoothest mix possible. So as soon as our tart is ready, we're going to load it in. So let me check on that. It's almost. It's set. You can see it's nice and set to the touch. We're just looking for a bit more browning. So we might cheat it for class, but I'm just going to give it 1 more minute. And in the meantime, let's assemble our garnishes. We're really moving today. This is a quick one. What am I missing? Whipped cream. It is very similar to lemon curd. Absolutely. But, not to harp on the sour cream or anything. I feel like I have like a real sour cream thing today. But this sour cream sort of takes it from like lemon curd, which really that creaminess in curd typically comes from like butter in the mix. The sour cream just adds like a tanginess and like added sort of fat that just gives it a really creamy mouthfeel, which is really delicious. All right, I'm going to slice up some lemon as well, just for our garnish. I'm going to go nice and thin. What's fun about this, you could take just like a little, and we're just going to make these fun little twists just to put on top. And 1 more of those. I also have a very sad basil plant that I'm going to pull out, take some basil leaves from. So let's pull out that shell and see what it looks like. It's going to be a bit light. What you're really looking for is a nice golden brown color. I'm going to go with this one, but I would leave it maybe 2 more minutes. You could see just a slight bit of browning starting to happen, but you do want a really nice set crust with just a little bit of golden brown color all around the edge. That's going to be perfect. And this way we know for sure that it's nicely baked through. It's going to stay nice and crisp as our filling goes in. And then all we're doing is just pouring in this warm filling. And this is going to go back in at 350 for another about 15 minutes until it just is set in the center. And I'm going to show you the one that I already made, which I actually overbaked slightly, which I feel like is a good learning tool here. Just kind of shake it a bit. If you do see any like big air bubbles or anything like that, you just give them a pop. But this is going to bake again just until set. So can you skip the baking part? It actually will not set up all the way if you skip the baking part. It would be almost like a more of like a lemon curd, like a spoonable curd. So the downside is you wouldn't be able to slice it if you don't bake it. That's the only downside there. Oh, nice. We love the taste of the rainbow cake. And I think, yeah, I love sour cream. Sour cream is quickly becoming one of my favorite things. All right, so let me pull out the one that I already baked, just so you can see. This one, I did use a square pan, which I thought was kind of fun. I actually overbaked it by about a minute. And the way that you know that you overbaked it is if you get a crack like this, right in the middle, and you can see it's just starting to pull away from the edges. I left it in just a few minutes too long. So I definitely recommend just give it a shake. Make sure that it's just set in the center. You don't get a big jiggle in the middle. And then just go ahead and pull it out. You can see my crust is nice and golden brown. And the beauty of these tart pans is it should just release really nice and easy. So we got the top out of there. If you want to, you go ahead and slide off the bottom. You can kind of see how nice and crisp that is. I might actually just leave it on the bottom, but these do come off pretty easy. You can kind of just take a knife and just separate a bit the crust to the tart. Kind of run your knife around. I'm just going right on the cutting board so I can slice it for you. I think we're pretty good. Oh, and then I did that. There we go. 1 second, one more. I know at this point it's like, why don't you just leave it on the, there we go. Perfect. All right, so this has been, first it was baked, then it was chilled. So it does set up really nicely. So someone was asking, is baking really necessary? You could see how firm this sets up. So it is really nice to bake it through, let it chill completely in the refrigerator. And then you can kind of have some fun and garnish. So I've got some strawberries, some blueberries. I've got some whipped cream. I'm going to run some hot water for that, and I'll show you why. Do some quenelles. You can kind of have some fun. And if you do get a crack like I got, the garnishes are a really good opportunity to kind of make those disappear, you know? I have some freshly whipped cream and I've got some hot water here. So a fun thing you do, you could pipe on some rosettes, would be really fun. You could also heat up your spoon a little bit. Just do what we call a quenelle. So really pretty dollop. Just sort of run it in my whipped cream and lift it up. And makes this little fancy, guys, which are so fun. Some of the strawberries, you can kind of do some halves, which is really pretty. Could fan one of them out, some slices without going all the way through. And they just kind of make a nice fan. Some blackberries, some blueberries. You could do edible flowers on this, would be so pretty.
What size is your rectangular pan, Katie?
Yeah, so this one is also a 9 inch, obviously a little bit more shallow, but the filling actually fit perfectly in it, which was really a nice surprise. I thought it was going to be too small. It's funny how shapes will do that to you. It's pretty. Let's see, a little dusting. Mhm. Little powdered sugar would be lovely. Just nobody leave until I cut in because I want you to see the inside. But that is our beautiful lemon tart. Isn't she so pretty? She's so fun. I love her. All right, but check out this texture. I need you to see the texture. It's very good. Oh, where are we going to cut? Okay. I'm going to cut here. Mm, look at that. See how it's like set to the touch? It's firm, but it's so creamy. I take a little spoon. It's like a very creamy. Mm, it's so good. It's just like a delightful lemon filling. It's so yummy. I know. I love a good rectangle. Yeah, it is great for brunch. But anyway, it's really delicious. I hope you guys make this one. It's a really lovely tart. I love the rectangles. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, a spicy meal. That would be perfect after a spicy meal. And it is lovely for Mother's Day or Easter. I think both would be really nice. Thank you guys so much for coming. I had so much fun. It was so nice to see all of you. I hope you bake this. Let us know if you do. Definitely post some photos. Tag us on Instagram at Learn with Michaels. That would be awesome. I hope to see you next week. Thank you so much. Happy baking. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, guys.